Welcome to the FSB National Webinar on the AI Advantage, Transforming Your Small Business with the Power of AI. I am Sarah King, the FSB London Event Manager, and thank you for joining us today. So first, let's introduce our guest panellists, and we have 4 today on this call. So firstly, over to John Paul. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, John Paul Dane. I am the co-founder and director of Equity AI. We're based at City University of London. I'm a chartered marketeer and also a chartered quality professional. So I apply AI in marketing primarily and specifically international marketing and aim to use my quality knowledge to minimize the risks and maximize the impact. Pleasure being here.
Thank you very much, John. And next is Celia Rizzo-Thanassi, please.
Hello, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'm Celia. I'm the Queen Bee of LinkedIn and AI for marketing educator. I am also a chartered marketer, and my mission is to help small business professionals and fellow marketers to thrive in the age of AI by enabling them to adopt the new technology. So it's great to be here with you today.
Thank you, Celia. And next is Ramasan, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ramasan Doraisamy, and I'm the co-founder and director of Entrepreneur Success Foundry. We are a training and advisory firm for small and medium-sized businesses. I do training on various topics, and AI is one of those topics. I'm glad to be here and sharing some ideas with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Alex next.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Alex Whittles. I'm Principal Consultant and founder of Purple Frog Systems, a Microsoft Gold partner specializing in data analytics and machine learning, helping small to large businesses really embrace data and embrace the power of machine learning.
That's great. Thank you very much for introducing yourselves. So before we start, you may be interested to know that FSB just yesterday published a report called Redefining Intelligence, the Growth of AI Among Small Firms. This can be found by heading over to our news channel on the FSB website at fsb.org.uk. And to launch the report, we actually had the help of 2 very cheeky robots called Pico and Obot, created by FSB members Obot Robot. So to watch the video, it's 2 minutes, 20 seconds long. Please head over to our X channel at FSB_policy, or find us on LinkedIn with FSB Westminster. It's definitely worth a watch. So to ask questions of our guest today, please use the questions to panelists button to send over your questions, and we will endeavour to answer as many as possible throughout today's webinar. So today's session will be recorded and shortly available on our on-demand page on the FSB website, in case you want to watch it all over again or share it with others that you know who might be interested. So if you aren't already an FSB member, we'd love to have the opportunity to speak to you further about the many benefits of joining the FSB family. So please visit our website to find out more, again, at fsb.org.uk, to book a meeting with one of our membership advisors. So we're going to now head over to all of our 4 guests to discuss our first topic of today. And our first topic today is about the power of AI for small businesses. And firstly, we're going to ask Celia a question. So why is everyone talking about AI, Celia?
That's a great question to start with, Sarah. Thank you. So it started in 1950 when Alan Turing, the British mathematician, came up with a very simple criterion to assess whether the capability of a machine to demonstrate human-like intelligence. And in 1956, at the Dartmouth workshop, a small group of researchers coined the term artificial intelligence, and that is considered the birth of AI as a discipline. Ever since, we have experienced AI summers and AI winters, as they're known. That is, summers, periods of interest, funding, research, progress, whereas AI winters have been periods of a lot of skepticism, so not much progress has happened. For the last 20 years, there's been a meteoric rise in artificial intelligence, partly fueled of the large amount of data that now is available, because machine learning thrives in big data. The pivotal moment, however, for most people who are not data scientists or techies or specialists, came in November 2022 when ChatGPT was launched to the world. So everyone could, without any technical skills, could start using AI directly, because our experience in the last few years has always been through embedded artificial intelligence through our apps and applications we've been using. So that's the big fuss about.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and also to learn there's a summer and a winter to AI. So the next question we have today for our panel is where and how do I start with AI? And this question goes to John Paul, please.
Thank you very much, Sarah. As we work with a lot of smaller companies, one of the biggest challenges is actually the business case for AI. So I think that should be the context of answering this question. If we look at it from that perspective, we normally recommend and we work with small companies at a function or, let's say, process or activity level. Functions being obviously marketing, accounting, purchasing, and so on. So that's one way of looking at it, and specifically identifying areas where they can apply AI. Secondly, they need to look at it from a strategic or tactical perspective. And I'll come back to what are some of the factors to be looked at in terms of that area. And finally, in terms of whether they build it themselves or they actually purchase it externally. Some of the considerations that go into those variables include the resources available at the smaller companies. So in terms of financial, human, technology, and also data, the level of expertise. We've worked with a number of smaller companies that have individuals that are very interested in pursuing analytics, and they could be sometimes in an accounting function, sometimes they could be in a marketing function. So we can help them and train them up to learn that and actually apply that across the organization. And also factors like scalability. If AI is, and I think that the report was referring to this also, that recently it's moving so fast that if a company starts with one of these modes that I mentioned, they need to think about how scalable that would be as AI grows very fast. And finally, in line with the report also, the risk tolerance. AI has risks, so there are some of the factors that need to be considered. So yeah, in summary, we would recommend around a functional process. And just to give you some examples, in terms of process, one of the areas we work with is international marketing. For example, when a company wishes to export, what are the key steps that they would follow in terms of deciding, for example, which country or which specific part of a country, let's say in the US, which state they would actually enter, to the point of actually being able to decide factors like pricing and so on and so forth. And for each of those steps, there are actual AI use cases that can be considered, and with each of them, they would have different business cases. I hope that gives a bit of a view.
Thank you very much, John. And there is definitely a lot involved in terms of starting out with AI. So thank you for sharing your insights there. And we're going to go to our next question. This one is for Alex. So what is the business case for applying AI into small businesses?
Interesting question. Basically, I would say the two most valuable assets in any business are people and data. As a small business owner myself, the biggest challenge we have is lack of resource, is people power. AI allows you to enhance the capability, efficiency, creativity, productivity of your whole team. Therefore, how is there not a business case? That's the question. It used to be incredibly expensive and complex to implement AI and ML solutions. That's all changed, especially with large language models, OpenAI, Copilot, ChatGPT, etc. It's now incredibly quick and easy to create AI tools. I'm doing a talk at another event later on today as a demo for that. I created an AI large language model chatbot for the website in under 2 minutes. Now, that was free. Now, when it's that cheap, easy, and free to access, the technology has democratized access to AI, available to everybody. It's no longer in the remit of large businesses. It is small businesses and medium businesses. With that power, if you don't embrace it, your competitors are going to. Therefore, you've got to maintain that competitive edge and start using these tools to help improve the efficiency in your organization now, really.
Thank you very much, Alex. And again, it is something that is very, very valuable to small businesses. It's just ensuring that small businesses know how to embrace AI for their particular business purpose. So before we move on to our next set of questions and next topic for today, we have got a few questions in the chat from delegates who have joined us. And there's one actually here for you, Alex, directly. It says from Deepak, question for Alex. What is the difference between AI and data warehouse? Are you able
So that's a
to...
great question. Yeah. So AI is about, it's really based on machine learning. It's giving data to a machine, to a system, to enable it to learn how to then make predictions in the future. Go back to the day of Pac-Man. The little ghosts were really intelligent, but they weren't. They were just programmed by humans as to what to do. Well, machine learning takes that and says, well, we're not going to program it. We're going to give it historical data and let it learn what to do. And using that, it can model society. How do you give it data? Well, you need information, you need good quality data, you need curated data to feed into that. And that's often where a data warehouse can come in, or a data lake, where you basically collect data from all over the organization, bring it into one place that's cleaned, transformed, centralized, and standardized. So you can then both report on it historically, create dashboards of it, and then you can use that as a really solid foundation for creating your machine learning prediction models on top of that. So in a lot of cases, it's a foundational layer to be able to then generate your AI ML systems on top of. A great question.
Thank you very much, Alex. And we are going to come back to other questions as this webinar progresses. We have got some other aspects to get through today. So we're going to move on to our next topic for discussion, which is about practical tips and best practices. So the first question, this one's going to go to Ramazan. The question we have for Ramazan is, how flexible are AI tools for adaptation to different business models?
The short answer, and thanks for the question, Sarah. The short answer to that question is it's remarkably flexible and adaptable across a broad range of businesses and business models. In fact, this is one of the reasons why AI has become so popular so quickly. For example, a business automation or business process automation tool called Zapier, I know for a fact works in a multinational organization and also with one of my clients who's a startup small business. So it's very scalable. The key is understanding which software or solution will help you achieve what you want to achieve and how scalable it is. Understand that before starting to implement that. In terms of integrating any AI tool, it's important that you have a clear understanding of the specific problem you are aiming to solve, and then decide which one to go for. Don't go for the ones that's just popular. Sometimes they just simply don't work. Well, one of the big retailers in UK retail sector, Tesco, is effectively harnessing AI for all their inventory management and customer service enhancements now. They either done it or they're very much in the process of doing that. Remember, the size of the organization does not matter with AI. That's one of its biggest strength or power. So any solution can be scalable for yours. As I said earlier, just understand what you want to solve and whether the tool will solve it for you.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you, Ramazan. And absolutely, I think it does help resources within organizations of all different sizes. So I actually have another question for you, Ramazan. So our next question is, are there best practices for ensuring the responsible use of AI in the small business context?
Yeah, well, definitely there are, and we should practice those. To start with, responsible use of AI in a small business or any business context is paramount, because not only it aligns with ethical standards that we need to live up to, but also it fosters trust and sustainability in business operations. And for a small business, it's even more important when you're starting off to establish this trust and sustainability with your clients. The best practice, in my opinion, should involve at least transparency, accountability, and a focus on privacy and security. If you cover this, you have covered the basics. I know of a UK-based fintech startup which uses AI to provide personalized financial advice. Now, they ensure transparency on how they collect the data and they use it. Now, with data protection and GDPR and all that, which you may have heard of, we do need to have transparency on these matters. But what they are doing different is that they don't wait for someone asking for a clarity on how their data being used. They've been proactive and they're informing people at the point of collection exactly how they're going to use the data. Now that has, how shall I say, convinced a lot of their customers that they're okay with some software tool analyzing and giving them personal financial advice. And they also continuously involve other stakeholders in the discussion in order to ensure that everybody's happy the way they are using AI. These are all important things. And remember, AI is a tool. The ethical standards, privacy, that still becomes the responsibility of us as the business owners. I hope that gives you some clarity on that.
It definitely does. And I do thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights too there, Ramasan. So we're going to move on to another question, which actually we're going to sort of cover by asking all of you to take part. So the next question is, what are some specific use cases where AI can make a significant impact on small businesses? So Celia, we're going to talk about content creation, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. So all the reports I've read, and that would be many, and part of the international community of AI marketers that I'm part of, where we share experiences from our clients, it points as content creation being one of the top use cases for AI at the moment. And the numbers are huge. It could be anything from 40 to 60% of the people who touch AI are actually creating content. And if we think about the content creation process for a bit, AI has a role to play. We just need to make sure that we use it in the right stage. So for example, if we start with ideation, coming up with that topic, we can have conversations with AI, and that's very useful. Then if we select the topic and we ask AI to create an outline of the idea, that's actually quite useful as well. And that can be a starting point from us. The other point that I find a part of the content creation is doing the background research. Reading quickly articles, summarizing, finding statistics, finding useful resources. So all of that, all of these stages that can help us hit the ground running can be supported by AI. The bit that we don't want to be doing is asking AI to actually write something. The idea here is that it needs to do the stages which are time consuming, so we can spend more of our quality critical thinking in developing our thoughts in the content creation. And the final stage where AI can be extremely useful is in editing. After we finish creating something, it can do it very quickly. So absolutely massive use cases for content creation. Thank you, Sarah.
Really very helpful. Thank you very much, Celia, for all of that shared. And our next question goes to Ramasan, and it's related to data protection and confidentiality in the sense of what challenges might small businesses face when integrating, I'm going to step back. So we're over to John Paul, sorry, international trade and export was our next question.
Thank you very much. No worries. We're working with a number of small companies and in actual fact, the Department for Business and Trade to help smaller companies with their export journey. So I can just briefly give the audience a sense of the kind of steps that we've been following through and the actual applications of AI. I mentioned early on that, you know, one of the key ways to start with AI is to consider functions or processes. So if you think about the export journey, what are some of the key steps that a smaller company would follow? I'll just quickly go through those and talk about some actual AI use cases for each of those steps. One of the key steps obviously would be for a company, particularly post-Brexit, being in the UK, is to consider some of the free trade agreements and then decide which of those countries, for example, would fit their product, and then do some market research. So first step is market research. And then in marketing talk, we talk about segmentation, which says, for example, from a geographical perspective, which part of a specific country, particularly when they're large, like the United States, which state, right? Or similar countries like India, also very large. So number one, segmentation and market research. Number two is some competitive analysis to understand how well they could compete with the existing players in that market. Number three would be to consider some of the regulatory and compliance factors in terms of licensing and customs requirements for their product, particularly if it's health and food related. Number four would be product localization, which is a subset of product development when we customize products in terms of their features and different attributes. Number five would be to decide their pricing. How are they going to price the product in that market? Number six would be their digital marketing strategy and e-commerce, if they're going direct. Number seven would be distribution. Number eight would be some of the logistics and transportation. Number nine, to look at the overall performance in terms of return on investment. Now, if I jump quickly through some of those in terms of the first one, segmentation, AI, you know, as a marketeer, when I got taught segmentation, we used to list down all the different variables that you could use, for example, geographical, for example, age groups, for example, the type of need. It's a very manual process. AI is able to go through masses and masses of these variables and look at all kinds of combinations. And the power of it is to be able to identify new segments that we as humans may not have considered. So it kind of particularly is very powerful on that side. On the second side, as Celia was mentioning, there's the element of content marketing. So think of that for an actual new market and how you would adjust that. So that's all part of the first step. In terms of competitive analysis, some of the AI use cases are to specifically look at the kind of search engine optimization and the kind of keywords that are being used on a competitor or multiple competitors' websites. And AI is able to work back and give you an insight into the kind of marketing strategies that your competitors are considering. So when you decide your positioning strategy, for example, to enter into a market, you can differentiate yourself in relation to those. So that's on the competitive side. In terms of regulatory and compliance, we've been working with a number of companies to help them, particularly if it's in a foreign market. AI has language capabilities to understand, for example, one of the companies was looking into South America at a basic level. You know, we're able to provide the tools for them to understand what they needed in terms of compliance requirements and customs into those markets. We have to be very careful with anything compliance and legal, because we can't solely rely on AI for that, but it is a really good starting point to get particularly smaller companies going. And I won't kind of go through all of them because I think we've got limited time, but I just want to illustrate some of those steps and where AI can come in. And one of the ways we advise, for example, for that process for AI to be considered is for a smaller company waiting in the UK, perhaps not exploring some of the markets. It's a agile, which I don't know if many people have heard that the kind of minimum viable approach. So the way we explain it is AI will not fully decide for you which market and do your strategy and do your distribution. But what it can do is to help you in a very minimum viable way consider new markets that you may not have considered. right? And that's from a business case perspective, that's one of the most powerful, I believe, business cases, because it's top line revenue generation, right? So it's additional X million for your company by using this approach.
Thank you very much, John Paul. And yes, absolutely everything there, very valuable to take on board. In terms of the same question, we're going to move to Alex, who's going to sort of highlight aspects to do with website, chatbot and Copilot. And this is in relation to what are some specific use cases where AI can make a significant impact on small businesses. And that is the website chatbot and co-piloting. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. So if we look at what we were talking about earlier about data warehouses feeding into machine learning, historical machine learning has been numerical based, sales numbers, stock, margin, financials, HR salaries, whatever it may be. Very data numerical based. The massive leap forward over the last year has been generative AI and large language models, where we turn that numerical world of ML into human language ML. OpenAI have created a phenomenal suite of tools, ChatGPT for generating text, DALL-E for generating images, the new one, Sora, for generating videos, has completely transformed what we can now do with AI. Microsoft have invested $13 billion into OpenAI, and they've now taken that technology and embedded it into the tools we use every day, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI, using a tool called Copilot. So you can open up PowerPoint, just create a very boring list and ask Copilot, make this slide look better. And it will do it. Now that to me, when you get that kind of power of just saving time, every single task you do using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI, it's now faster. You can make things look better. And when resource is your key challenge, making people be able to do more, faster and better is just a game changer in terms of really increasing productivity in the team. You can now create your own Copilots using Copilot Studio to create your own chatbots. You can point it at a website or a SharePoint library, document library. And we created one for a customer the other week where for their internal support team. So they can just ask it a question and find documents around their business. And as they're growing, taking on new staff, that becomes an ever increasing challenge, access to accurate information. And this large language model, generative AI concept, especially within Copilots, really allows access to human language. They don't even need to know they're using AI. They're just asking a question and it understands the question. So that to me is an absolute game changer for small businesses especially.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I just wanted to flag up one question we've had in from Corinda. And it's related to what we've just been talking about, actually. What are the key areas where AI can have a significant impact on small businesses' growth and sustainability? So very, very briefly, if I just go around all of you, very briefly, just explain one thing that can help. So Alex, maybe to you first. I
would go back to that Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Just use that. Yes, it costs £30 per user per month. But if that can save each person quarter of an hour, half an hour a day, that's a 15% improvement on time available in your business. Big change, low cost. Thank you, Alex. And Celia, did you want to highlight anything there for our delegates?
Yes, the way I see this is that you can clone yourself. So if you are one team marketer, you can operate as 1.5. If you have a team of 3 people with AI tools and the right usage and investing in your own learning and mastery, you can operate as a team of 5. So this is the main advantage that I think it buys time and it allows us to do the most valuable activities in our business.
Thank you very much, Celia. And on that, I'm going to move on to Ramazan, because Ramazan is actually going to share some aspects to do with customer service in terms of how AI can make a significant impact. So over to you, Ramazan, please.
Yeah, well, to answer the earlier question, it's all about efficiency, I think. And one of the topics I teach, for example, is about how a small business owner can have a team and all the support they need. You see, when a small business starts, the biggest challenge is funding. So you don't have the money, but this is the stage at which you need all the help you can get. So how do you do that? Now, AI has come in and made that definitely possible. you have, like what my co-panelist was saying earlier, lower cost, and yet you have all these tools available to you. And that helps you gain time and so on. So the same thing applies here. You appear very efficient, and as a business person being supported by a significant team without really having human beings for everything to do. And efficiency is a byproduct of that. Now, with regards to customer service, AI can definitely revolutionize customer service by enhancing personalization and automating responses. Earlier, my co-panelist Alex mentioned about chatbots and so on. This would be a further enhancement. There are now human-like conversational AI platforms that can handle a vast array of customer queries in real time, from tracking orders to answering frequently asked questions. And I've heard some of this, and the conversation is unbelievable. It even hums and haws and wonders before it answers you. So it's very human-like. Another area AI solutions will make an impact is in terms of customer feedback analysis. In the past, this was a tedious process, whether done manually. Even with IT, you still had to look at them, make sense of them, and then decide what to do with them. Now, AI tools using natural language processing algorithms actually analyze them very fast and gives you the final result. You just need to take it and apply it, if you like. So these are some of the areas in customer service where AI is making significant impact. Another good example is from a small hospitality business that I know. They use AI to analyze customer feedback very effectively. And for them, it's interesting, being a hospitality business, they advertise their business in various third-party platforms, and there are hundreds of them out there. So analyzing all of them can be pretty tricky. So now they have got AI, which is collecting the data and collating it from all these different platforms, and then producing the analysis for them just to use or apply in their marketing and whatnot. So customer service is one of the biggest areas where AI is making a significant impact. And it's even more important for a small business to consider this because you don't have the resources to employ an army of people to do all this for you. And for a small fee, an AI tool will do it while you're sleeping.
Thank you very much, Ramazan. Very helpful indeed. Now, I know we have lots of questions in the chat, and our panelists, as we go through the webinar, will be able to try and type some answers to those who have put questions forward as we go through. But obviously, we're focusing on the webinar, and we'll come to hopefully all the questions by the end of this webinar. So we are on to the next section of our discussion today, and it's about navigating caveats and challenges. So the question is to our panel, what challenges might small businesses face when integrating AI into their operations? Now, this one firstly goes to Alex, who's going to discuss understanding implications and ethics and bias. Over to you, Alex. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so this is a bit of a challenge that these tools are incredibly easy to use now, but they do come with a few concerns and things to be wary of. Inheriting unconscious human bias is a really massive area for this. We're training these machine learning models based on existing real-world data, and unfortunately, our real world is biased. And so all the information we're training these models on inherit that. An example of that is Amazon built a model to review CVs, to help them filter CVs to determine who they should interview. The outcome of that was that apparently only interview men, because obviously women aren't important. Well, why? No one told the model that men are better. It just learned because there were more men in Amazon than women, and therefore it made the decision, the interpretation, that obviously I should only interview men. Now, think of the danger of that. When you've got a human making that decision, you can actually be aware of the decision you're making. When an ML system is making that decision, well, I haven't made that decision, it's the computer. I'm not my problem. Well, actually, it is because you've given it the information to train on, and we are responsible for that, and we are responsible for the output of ML systems. And so understanding that is an incredibly complex topic and a very challenging topic. So when you're building models or using them, just have that in the back of your mind of what are you feeding in and what's going to be the impact on that. Now, in that case, the damage is limited. I say limited. It's internal to Amazon. If they hadn't decided to actually, if they hadn't found that, stopped using the model and changed and actually publicized it as a useful case study, we would never have known about that. But a more open one you may have seen over the last few weeks was DPD, the delivery company, who created an AI chatbot on the website. And it was there to answer questions from customers. And the problem is with these generative AI models is you can ask them a question and then re-ask it to change the context. Create me a poem about something, and then, okay, well, now rewrite it as if I were a 7-year-old, or if I were a PhD student. You can change the context of what the AI model is trying to do. And what they found with that, this user who was trying to hack the system, was that you could use that reprompting to actually change the rules and remove the guardrails. And they managed to get a DPD chatbot to call itself the worst delivery company ever. Now, when your own chatbot is calling your company the worst delivery company ever, and someone's got a screenshot of that and it's gone around the internet, that is reputational damage that is very difficult to undo. They then carried on and managed to get the chatbot to write a swearing haiku about how bad DPD is. Now, that's great fun to look at. Everyone has a laugh about it, but it's damaging to a brand. So do make sure when you're creating these systems, whatever it may be, that you test it effectively and actually are aware of the potential when things do go wrong. You haven't got a human there to curate and sanitize the output. So just be a little cautious of that. Thank you.
Gosh, thank you, Alex. Lots to think about there in terms of just sort of the whole processes involved there with reputational damage, if it does happen, to do with AI. So thank you for sharing all your insights there. So I'm going to move on now to Ramasan, who's going to talk about data protection and confidentiality as a challenge that services might incur when integrating AI into their operations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. As a business, when we integrate AI into our operations, data protection, confidentiality, these emerge as one of the most significant challenges. Now, these two are related, obviously. It primarily revolves around handling, storage, and processing of sensitive customer and business data, which, if compromised, can lead to legal repercussions and damage to your reputation. One challenge is, well, as we all know, we have the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, in the EU now, and similar laws. In fact, GDPR applies in the UK as well through our own laws now. So as a small business, these are risks you can't afford to take. So what do we do in order to minimize the damage that can be caused to our reputation because we failed to protect people's data and confidentiality? Now, in terms of the AI tools, first, choose the AI tools you want to use, and then find out how the data that they are collecting on your behalf is being stored by them. Understand how they are managing things, because some of these tools may not be based in the UK or indeed even in Europe. I've got one such example with a client we dealt with recently, is an online retailer. They're based in the UK. They were using AI tools that's based out of China, if I'm not mistaken. So when they're in a different jurisdiction, you need to understand how they are going to manage the data and store them and protect them and so on. So that should be a key consideration in you deciding which AI tool to use. So data protection, the way you mitigate the risk of it is similar to how it has been before. It's just that now you need to analyze the tool you are going to subscribe to help you do all these things. Despite the benefits, cybersecurity incidents are common. We keep hearing a lot about data breaches everywhere. Now that can happen. The other thing I would suggest when you are dealing with data protection is that in terms of your business insurance. Carefully look at what type of business insurance you have. You'll be surprised. Recently, I was doing a talk with the small and medium-sized enterprise trade body for Greater London. Now, they found out about 38% of their members do not include the IT protection in their business insurance. What a big mistake that can be. And I know FSB on their website also has got people you can talk to get advice on the right kind of insurance to buy. So please ensure you have these protections in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramasan, and very helpful. So we're going to move over to Celia now, who's going to highlight content creation and digital watermarking. So over to you, Celia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So in marketing, the big question is around IP, and it's a lot of it is about who owns the output of AI, who owns the content or the creatives that AI uses. And there are some very high-profile cases happening at the moment, with the New York Times having sued OpenAI just before Christmas. So this is an open case. We are waiting to see what's going to happen. But also last year, at least a couple of authors also sued OpenAI, because that happened in the US, because they discovered their book entirely into ChatGPT. So I'm not here to give you legal advice, but I would say to you that this is an area that we all have to be very careful. For now, you have to assume you don't own the rights to the content of AI. So if you copy paste images or copy without making it your own, without changing it significantly, adding your own experience, your own flavor, your own brand voice, then assume automatically you don't own it, and that anybody else can pick it up and have something very similar on their website. Another big issue that we have in marketing is deep fakes. One of my very, very big concerns is that I see a lot of people use tools like HeyGen, for example, which can clone you. You can upload your voice for a few seconds or a video of you, and then it clones you. So one of the concerns that we all have to take into consideration is what happens to that data? Who else can clone me? Who else can clone my voice? So now the issue is with deep fake. And in a year of elections in this country and in the US, deep fakes are a considerable risk. I think one of the ways to mitigate that risk is for companies to start putting simple, straightforward policies in place. So the digital watermarking you mentioned earlier, Sarah, is an initiative that started with Adobe last year. And literally a couple of weeks ago, all the big players of AI, so Google and Meta and OpenAI and Microsoft, they all came together. And so these are rivals, big tech rival firms, but they all recognize the need to have digital watermarking. This is for image creation. It will be invisible to the naked eye, but you will be able to right click and see clearly that this is an image created by AI. So we do have to be quite careful. Simple, straightforward guidelines for your business is to openly say that this image was created, let's say, by DALL-E, by Midjourney. So openly say that, and also have a policy of who is sharing what in terms of voice and video images to avoid deep fakes. Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much, Celia. And I know you touched on mitigation in your response there. And I know John Paul was going to touch on mitigation. Was there anything else you wanted to add there, John Paul?
No, other than to say that a kind of comprehensive approach to it is important, I believe, in terms of having actually some basic risk management. If you look into different disciplines like project management, we have risk logs and we prioritize them based on impact and probability, right? Sometimes when we talk about risk, not all risk is equal, right? So I think that's one of the key messages I would give. And then for the ones that are high impact and high probability, identify some mitigations. It sounds simple, but a lot of smaller companies often don't have time and kind of forget that. So yeah, that's the only part I would add.
Yeah, that's very helpful addition there. Thank you very much. Now, I know in the chat there have been a number of questions about sort of favourite tools or which AI tools to use. And now we're not going to be promoting any specific tools today, but I'm guessing between you all, you've all used various platforms and various tools to help you in your businesses. But maybe it's worth sort of sharing today just sort of ones that you've quite enjoyed using. So first, I'm going to go to John Paul. In terms of co-piloting tools was one that you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I just kind of believe we did some quick analysis within the marketing function. There's an organization called the American Society of Quality and Productivity, where they benchmark all the marketing processes. And in our assessment, 50% of those marketing processes that large corporations would have a lot of resources, right? Small companies can do using some of these really basic large language models like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. In terms of the different versions, they're the free versions, that's ChatGPT 3.5, actually the early ones. And there's also Gemini, which is the Ultra, and that was announced recently. So, I mean, for a smaller company, they have their pros and cons. I would just recommend start with one of them and start to apply it at a productivity level. To basically gain resources of the nature that larger companies have. So yeah, to me, the co-pilots or the ChatGPT or the Google Gemini are one of my favorites. Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And Alex, what would you say your favorite AI tools are for your business?
So I would agree with Copilot, so specifically Microsoft Copilot, the product, because it integrates so tightly with all of the tools we use day to day, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I've already talked about that earlier. So I really want to step back and say, well, actually, sometimes, yes, that's good with the tools that you create. But the really big one for me is DALL-E, the image creation. When I'm creating slide decks or proposal documents for customers or whatever it may be, being able to just ask it to create images. One of my staff, his wife gave birth last week. I was able to ask it to create an image of a purple frog pushing a pram down the road, and we used that to print out a card for them. It's really, really great to be able to have that creativity and do that in a few seconds. So that to supplement all of the information in the documents we're creating, I would say is fantastic, and it's free. You're on mute, Sarah.
Thank you. I do see lots of images across sort of social media channels where people have obviously used AI to create an image that really suits their actual business name. So just to hear your sort of story there about the purple frog, absolutely it's got lots of benefits in lots of ways, hasn't it? So Celia, what's your favorite tool?
Oh, that's a big question. I'm very much of the school of thought that the guys just mentioned. I mean, the way I see the AI tools are effectively in three categories. The multi-purpose 360 tools like ChatGPT and Claude, and this is always a starting point, as John Paul mentioned. Then we have native tools like Alex mentioned, so what we are already using, and then the big fun in marketing are very specialist niche tools. And goodness, where do I start? So one of the big things in content creation is the ability to repurpose existing content quickly. And one of the tools I've been using lately is called gloss.ai. And for example, if you have a podcast and so let's say it's half an hour, 45 minutes, it can pick up clips that can then be used for promoting different ideas, different concepts in your business very easily within a few seconds. So Gloss AI is for repurposing content, and I love it.
Thank you, Celia. And Ramasan, what would you say your favourite AI tool is?
Sarah, if I may, there was a comment from one of our attendees. I'll quickly address that. They were saying about, the comment was rather about the need to be careful about using sensitive data or inputting sensitive data into any AI tools you use in your business. I can't agree more with that statement. Now, very quickly, be very, very careful, especially if you're inputting other people's sensitive information or personal information into any AI tools. And also, I'm not trying to say stay away from AI, definitely not, but just be cautious and be aware of the risk. That's all. Whatever we put out there into AI world, it eventually finds its way into Chat GPTs and Geminis and so on and so forth. That information may be regurgitated somewhere else. So just be aware of that and take necessary precautions. The good thing is that most of these tools have some level of protection with that, but not all of them are good at it. So have a look into that. Now, going on to the tools, I talked earlier about customer service, and I also mentioned business process automation. So let me give you two, or rather one for each one of that. Customer service, Poly.ai is an amazing human-like conversational AI tool that can handle a lot of your customer service requirements. The other, in terms of business process automation, is Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R. And this sort of solution or AI tool, what it does is that it's actually like a middleman. It sits between so many different softwares and tools and gets them talking to each other and exchanging data and so on between them and making sense of the entire process. And it'll kind of run your business processes automatically. So you might want to have a look at that. But mind you, these are just examples. There are so many others there. And as many of my colleagues here have pointed out, this area is changing all the time. I got to know a software about 3 weeks ago, and now they're telling me something else better is out there. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramasan. Now, I know we still have quite a number of questions in the chat. Did you put your hand up?
Yeah,
there?
there's a really great question from someone in the chat about how do you learn the way to speak to AI so that it gives you what you want? And that is a fantastic question because it's a really big challenge. When we first started learning how to use search engines, Google, AltaVista, Yahoo, you had to learn how to actually phrase searches. Well, this is a whole load more complex, called prompt engineering. And learning how to do this is a challenge in its own right. I would just say start small. Start with a free tool like ChatGPT, like DALL-E, and keep iterating new questions to evolve the context and the purpose of it, and you will learn over time. There's no simple guidebook for it, but you're right, it is a challenge and you do need to practice. Start now with small things and you'll gradually learn how to use it effectively.
So thank you very much, Alex. Now, I know our panelists have been going through the questions that have been asked, but if there is another panelist on this call who'd like to answer a question live, then please do just share in a moment. We have only got a few more minutes left of this webinar, and we have got just one other section to complete. So any of our panelists, would you like to answer any of the questions that are there today? Okay, so we have got lots of questions. You can always reach out to our guest speakers today on LinkedIn and be able to connect with them and make contact and maybe ask your question again. So thank you there. Alex?
Sorry, there is one more question there, which is really good, from Kerry, about who owns the copyright for content or images produced using AI tools. And this is an area that I think will evolve over time. My understanding at the moment, certainly in US law, is whoever creates or develops the tool that runs the AI system owns the copyright of work created by that tool. Now, that creates huge challenges potentially of when you use that in your business, you're using something you don't own the copyright for. So what is the licensing agreement? It is a complex legal area. I'm not going to give you legal advice, but assume that anything you get off the internet for free is not owned by you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Now, I know we've got one more sort of section to our webinar today, and that's to ask you really for some final thoughts. So, Celia, in sort of one word or a sentence, what is your final thought for today in terms of AI altogether?
So my big mission is to encourage small business owners and other marketers to explore the tool. So my number one word is curiosity. Dive in, start exploring, play with the tools. Don't stand by and watch the AI thing happen. Just experience it, because that's the only way to develop your understanding and decide how you want to integrate it into your business. Curiosity.
That's a very good word and a good explanation too. So thank you there, Celia. So I'm going to go to Ramasan next. What would you say your one word or one sentence is?
I believe that to be successful, one needs to always remain adaptable. So adaptability is what I would put out there to you today. Remain adaptable in terms of how you utilize a particular AI tool in your business. You need to do a bit of a lateral thinking, make sure it works for your business and you are not working as dictated by the AI tool. And also be adaptable to change the tools. So don't get into long-term commitments. If you use a tool today, like I said earlier, 3 weeks down the line, something else might come along. So be ready for that.
Definitely. No, that's a very good word, adaptability. And I think we're going to go to Jean-Paul next. What was your sort of one word or sentence as a closing thought?
I would say impact, which is linked to business case and the effort versus the return. My belief, and all the research confirms this, is that AI will impact most functions and businesses. So I would recommend businesses be proactive and put in the effort to find impactful AI use cases for their situation and for their company.
Very good. Another good word, impact. And we're going to pass to Alex now. So Alex, what would you say your one word or one sentence is as a final thought?
I'm going to go for transformational. This technology is here to stay. The amount it's evolved over the last 12, 24 months is staggering. This is the worst this technology will ever be. It is improving at a phenomenal pace. The capability of it now is nothing compared to the capability in a year's time. If you don't start embracing this now, you are going to lose your competitive edge. So get started on it.
No, thank you very much to you, Alex, as well. So transformational. So the words we heard today were impact, curiosity, transformational, and adaptability. 4 very strong words to sort of take away with you all today. Now, just before we close, I just want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today, all FSB members, and a special thank you to John Paul, who's actually dialed in from Australia. So thank you, John Paul. Thank you, Celia. Thank you, Ramasan, and thank you, Alex, for joining us. And AI is a very big topic, and there's 4 great members on this call for you to connect to after this session today. We'll be able to help you further. But also please be reminded of the FSB report that was produced yesterday, Redefining Intelligence. It's there on the website for you to take a look at and to read the report to see how AI can support you and your business going forward. So if you have enjoyed today's session, and I hope you have, I know we haven't got through all the questions, but there's been many, and I do thank you very much for the input that you've provided to this session. Please do share any sort of comments or thoughts on Trustpilot with us, and we'd really appreciate that from you all today. So thank you for joining this FSB national webinar.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.